Welcome to the PVM Podcast. I'm your host, Nick, owner and founder of Project Veteran Muscle Gym and Foundation. Here we discuss topics veteran and first responder related, which include active duty life, off-duty life, civilian life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. PVM's mission is to build physical and mental strength one veteran at a time. That being said, let's get this thing rolling. Welcome to another episode of the PVM Podcast. Today we have Alex with us, longtime friend of mine. We've known each other for, 20 years?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. So, I've been a long time, traveled down from Hartford to be with us today. So, hopefully you guys get something out of this, and hopefully everybody has a good time here. So, all right, well, let's dig into it right away. Where'd you grow up?
Well, actually, I'm not far from Hartford. Me and my parents had a house out in Erin, so just south of Hartford. Spent a lot of time there. Went to Erin Elementary School. Then we ended up building a house in Ashippun, and moved out there in between 7th and 8th grade, and just ended up going to Oconomowoc for the rest of 8th grade and for high school. And then they actually still live there. So
Yeah. Same house?
Yep. They kind of built their forever house out there, and they got 50 acres. And
Yeah, so hang on to that.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll be tough to come by anywhere around
Yeah,
there nowadays.
yeah, for sure.
But, any siblings?
Nope, only child.
No, only child, spoiled one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How was life growing up?
I unfortunately, I'm embarrassed about it now, but I was always a kid that called everybody up asking if I could come over and play, and it just, I don't know, I made do with it. I had a cousin who was pretty close, so me and him hung out quite a lot. My mom is the oldest of 5, so she wasn't afraid to spend a lot of time with her family and her brothers and sisters, so that made it a little easier. I had a lot of cousins, so made it work.
Yeah.
But me and my dad always found stuff to do, and he taught me how to drive stick shift out in the field behind the house and an old Ford Fiesta. And so we did a lot of fun things to pass the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you into sports or anything like that?
I started football kind of elementary school, middle school level, and then I did that pretty much through, I think, junior year. Had an issue with one of the coaches, so I didn't continue with it. But I ended up sticking with the band thing. I played Barry sax, so I did that for all of high school. So I was the band geek.
Yeah, but nowadays that's cool.
Yeah.
So, music is in.
Oh, yeah.
So
I got a fallback plan if anything ever falls through.
Yeah, back to high school playing musical instruments, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah. What sort of things other than that were you into when you were a kid? Did you hunt or fish or anything?
Yeah, a lot of hunting and fishing. At the time, of course, I was younger, so I wasn't super into the fishing, but my dad always had me come along, and I think he just obviously enjoyed the spending time together kind of thing. But we did deer hunting a lot. My family has property up near Elko, Wisconsin, up by Anago, and so we would go up there a lot and deer hunt up there almost every winter as well. So that's was definitely the for sure thing every winter as we had that going.
Yeah, that's fun. Where up north was it?
It's Elko. It's actually just north of Anago.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, how long of a drive is that?
It's roughly 2.5, 3 hours.
Okay.
So it's not terrible now. It's easier quicker to get up there now than it was. It used to be a solid 4-hour drive, but it was all 2-lane highway. And now it's, you run 41 and then, you run 10 over until you hit 45 going north, and it's all 4-lane freeway basically.
Yeah.
So made the trip a lot quicker, or at least it seems like it.
Yeah. No, that's good. You still go up there then?
Yeah. Yep. I got my camper kind of semi-permanently placed up there, so
that's fun. Nice to get away.
Yep.
So you said you didn't play any sports or anything?
Not outside of high school. I did the football thing, but
Yeah.
Didn't really do too much after that, other than just recreational type stuff, skiing, occasionally golfing. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So what was your first car then?
Technical first car was an 87 Dodge Omni, and we ended up selling that before I was able to drive to upgrade to an 89 Chrysler LeBaron. Or no, actually it was a Dynasty. It was an 89 Dodge Dynasty. And then I blew the motor up in that, and then ended up trading that in for an '02 Kia Rio, brand new. I owned it in high school. Payments were like $130 a month. No ABS.
That's a lot back then.
No AC, manual crank windows, manual door locks, no airbag. Like the thing was bare bones, stick shift, and drove that through almost all of high school. Ended up totaling it, and then bought a. What did I end up getting? Oh, I drove my dad's '87 Buick LeSabre for a while, and then I ended up buying a '87 Chrysler LeBaron Turbo. Drove that around for a while, and then got a '98 GMC Jimmy 2-door that I'm sure you remember, the blue one. That we had the big whip antenna and the big Street Attack logo on.
Yeah, I remember that one now.
Yep. And then after I had that one, I ended up getting a 2007 Volkswagen Rabbit and ran that one for a few years, had it tuned and lowered and everything like that. And by the time I was done with it, because it was just the 5-cylinder, I was able to keep up with the 2-liter turbos. And so I was happy with it. I traded that and ended up getting a 2013 Toyota Tacoma. And that started me down the truck road.
Yeah.
And then I upgraded to a 2015 Sierra.
I remember that one too.
Yep. And then ended up going to 18 Suburban, which I just ended up getting rid of, and went back a few years to a 2013 Ram 2500 with Cummins now. So.
Yeah, quite the adventure.
Yeah.
we see where the truck thing came in.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. We're back now.
That's all right.
So, all right. So you just got this Ram then.
Yep.
So that kind of ends the timeline of vehicles.
Yeah.
But
for now.
Yeah. For now. Yeah. Temporarily.
Yeah.
So let's rewind back to high school and stuff. So, what school did you say you go to?
Went to elementary school in Erin, and then high school in Oconomowoc.
Okay. Yeah, how was Oconomowoc?
Not too bad. A lot bigger than what I was used to. Went from Erin school, I think the total K through 8 population was like 300 something people, and I ended up being in a graduating class of almost 300 people. So
yeah,
it was a big step up, but at the same time, for me, it was kind of nice because I was so used to that small, never really having a big group to pick people out of and hang out with, to now a lot bigger of a variety of people that I can associate with. So
yeah, it'd help you get more friends and stuff.
Yep.
You weren't hanging out with your cousins as much.
Yep.
Yeah. So no, that's a good thing. No, I went to Arrowhead, obviously.
Yep.
But I heard they had a pretty good automotive program over at Oconomowoc too.
They did, and unfortunately that actually went out before I got there, but they had a really good electronics program.
Oh.
And so I ended up taking some AP courses in that, and then doing some actual teacher's assistant credits with that. So
yeah.
That helped out, later on with some of the automotive maintenance career that I've basically been in. So that definitely helps with the electrical diagnostic side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. So, and then your parents are still together?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Both still
good.
doing well, thankfully. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. So it's pretty rare that I ask that question and people are like, no, they're divorced.
Yeah.
I'm like,
no, they're still going strong.
No, that's good.
So
very good. So what got you into your military career then?
Well, it was something that I had kind of been looking at as an option, and after high school, I went to tech school. I did a semester of computer hardware, and realized that if I was going to be sitting in an office or something like that, I was going to absolutely go nuts. And so I switched over and went through the automotive maintenance technical diploma program. And so it is equivalent to an associate's degree in just general automotive maintenance and repair. Finished with that, and then just kind of started working as a tech. And I was kind of revisiting the idea of joining, and I was like, you know what? Why don't I do the guard? Because then I can kind of just dip my feet into it, see if I want to do more or not. And lo and behold, they actually had a job that was what I do, and it's basically a wheeled vehicle mechanic. So 2005, I still talk to my recruiter to this day, and he's like, you were probably the easiest one that I've ever had. You came in, you knew exactly what you wanted to do, and I didn't have any problems with you.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, and probably makes their job a whole heck of a lot easier.
Right,
so
right.
Trying to figure out people that have no idea what they want to do with their life and put them somewhere that they might like.
Yep. Or they're trying to base their job strictly off how they tested, and now it's like, well, yeah, some people can test great, but then their practical application ain't that good.
No, it's a story for everything.
Yeah.
So, there's not a lot of practical application that works out real good at all anymore.
Right.
But what recruiter did you go to? The one
Right in Oconomowoc, and that was Gary Jensen,
Okay.
and he's actually, I honestly don't know if he retired yet or not. He might still be active in some aspect of the National Guard.
Yeah.
So I have to check in on him again, because I think last time I talked to him, it was a couple years back, but I think he was still in the upper echelons of the enlisted side on the National Guard. So
Yeah, lifer.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it works out for some people.
Yeah.
So what was your experience like in the National Guard? Like how did it go? What'd you do first?
I liked it. I like I said, I started in August of 2005, and in January of 2006, I shipped down to Fort Knox and did my basic down there. And then after doing basic, and I was actually runner-up for Soldier of the Cycle and the Abrams Award, ended up going to Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Edgewood, Maryland, and did my wheeled vehicle school there, and doing our first week and kind of getting oriented. And they mentioned this fast track program where you can essentially test out of the job training. I'm like, how do I do that? And I said, well, you got ASC certifications? Like, yeah, actually I do. This is what I do on the civilian side. And I explained to them, I had the technical diploma and associate's level, and they're like, what the hell are you doing here? It's like, I don't know, it's just something I wanted to do,
Yeah.
And so, I took, I think it was one test every day for like a week and a half, and then I had to do like the final exercise with the class that I was coming up next to graduate, and by June I ended up graduating June 6th of 2006, and I would have I think I would have been down there till like either August or September normally, so shaved a bunch of time off of that and got back home and went right to my first unit, and that was right in Sussex, and we're automotive support maintenance unit type thing. It's Det 2 of the 107th maintenance, and that was where it all started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, how did you come up for that award in basic?
a lot of it was all the drill sergeants kind of picked their people that they thought were most fitting for it. Everybody kind of cycles through in leadership roles in basic training. At least for me, obviously I can't speak for everybody's experience, but they always have a new platoon guide or each squad leader or each team leader or whatever, and I was the only one that was never swapped out from my position for the entire cycle, and so they just kind of looked at it like, all right, well, I mean, this guy's kind of got it together. I mean, granted, I was a little bit older. I joined when I was, I think, it would have been when I was 20 years old. So I was a couple years older than a lot of the guys that were there. But we did have some older guys that were there that were pushing the upper line for National Guard age. And then we even had one former British soldier that he was trying to join the National Guard. And that's actually who I ended up losing to, because it's like, well, it's kind of hard to lose to a prior service. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the bar would be pretty low on everybody else.
Right. Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So you get stationed in Sussex.
Yep.
So anything significant happen over there for you?
Not really. I mean, I was only in Sussex for that would have been June of 06 and June of 06, and then I want to say it was like January or February. They started asking and getting people to go on this deployment, and they pulled me and two other similar ranking maintenance, wheel mechanics, and they just said, hey, this unit is going, and do you want to go? And first guy he just got married, was going to be having a kid. He's like, no, I got too much going on. Okay, cool. And because it wasn't our unit, you can do that. Next guy, he's, oh hell yeah, let's do this. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I knew the guy for my short time that I was there, and this kid joined when he was 17. His mom picked the job. That was the only way she let him join. So she figured, oh, mechanic. So what does the dumbass do? He goes and volunteers to deploy. And it's like, all right, so he's 18. He's got a 3-year-old daughter. He's living in his mom's basement. He works third shift at McDonald's. Like, yeah, I'll go with, because this guy's going to end up doing something stupid. So me and him basically elected to go. And then June was our first time meeting up in Anago, actually, ironically, was where the first drill was for the 105th Echo Troop. And the way that it was running at that time is each unit would get cycled through and would take place of an active duty unit to let them have their time off. After they got rid of the stop loss thing, they weren't doing the repetitive back-to-backs mandatory anymore. You could voluntarily do it, but you had the right to stabilization time. And so what they would do is they would swap in National Guard units to basically cover, to keep a presence. And then that also cut down the length of the deployment duration, and so the problem is that the year prior, 2-127 infantry from Wisconsin had just went, and E Troop 105th Cav is part of that. And so they didn't have anybody that was able to go. So they picked the commander that they wanted to run it, and that was at the time Major Mike Murphy. Great guy. Still talk to him to this day. And they basically told him that he can handpick his entire unit. And so he picked out his XO and his sergeant major and went from there. And so it was an entirely mismatched group. We had somebody from every single different corps of the Army. We had engineers, we had signal, we had NBC guys, we had armorers, we had admin, mechanics, comms, infantry, cav, everything. So we had a little bit of everything that was out there. And of course, a handful of them, yeah, they had been on the previous deployment before. They elected to go again, so they had worked with each other. But most of us, we didn't know anybody, but it actually ended up working out really well because nobody knew each other, so everybody kind of had to learn who everybody was, and for the most part, we all got along. Yeah. But it worked out really well. We had a great group of guys that went over there. So we did our pre-mob down in Camp Shelby, Mississippi, which was not fun. I think we got down there. I think it was towards the end of June, and it was not very decent because they didn't even have our buildings ready yet. The previous unit that was in them hadn't left to go over yet, and so we basically got taken right out to the field exercise area and got to spend our first 2 weeks there in tents, in cots, in Mississippi, in June, And yeah, 100% humidity every day, upper 80s, 90s, and we can't even start our training yet. We're just sitting down there, nothing to do. And so when we start going through all the medical stuff and all the in processing and all that, and we got through it. Then finally we got our building, and then at least we could have AC during the portion that when we weren't having stuff to do and kind of get a break from it a little bit. But that humidity down there was terrible. We couldn't turn the AC units up past halfway, otherwise they just freeze right over. So,
yeah, and then you're in full uniform the whole time too, so you're sweating balls. Hey, but I mean, at least you get the sweating part out of the way before you go overseas.
Yep. And then me and 3 other guys actually got picked to go to wrecker school in Iowa. And so we got to leave the wonderful Camp Shelby, Mississippi for 2 weeks, and we got to go to what's known as the gentleman's course up at Camp Dodge in Iowa, which is just outside of East Des Moines, big college town. And the plus side with that was that being a gentleman's course means classes from 7 until 3 to 4. Uh-huh. After that, you're on your own time. Just be back here ready to learn at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So we had a rental car that we would all go back, barracks, change into our regular civilian clothes, and we'd go out and hit the bars.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was fun because it was a nice little break for us. I mean, it kind of sucked because it's like, all the other guys, they're still stuck on post down in Mississippi. But, it was a good course, and basically it was you learn how to be a tow truck driver for the Army. So got that done, and then ended up going back down to Mississippi, finishing everything up down there. And then from there we got on a plane, and today also re-emphasize with the humidity down there. We got on the plane to leave, and they had the air on, and it looked just like steam pouring out of the air vents because it was just that humid. And once they closed the door, it was like this immediate different feel just because it was, the air just cleared out so fast.
Yeah.
But so we got on a plane, left Mississippi, and we ended up flying to, I want to say Maine for fuel, and then did a fuel stop in Shannon, Ireland, and then did a fuel stop in Germany, and then we finally landed in Kuwait. And we're thinking, okay, nighttime, desert, how bad can it be? Mm-hmm. And they're like, local time is, I think it was like 12:30 in the morning, and the temperature outside is, I think they said like 89 or 90, and we're like, okay, but it's nighttime, right? And we step off, and of course we're not at actual airports, and so it's the old, stairs that they roll up to the side of the plane. And we step off, and it's hot. It's a hot wind, and it's just like, but it's dry as holy hell. Yeah. So it's like, well, what was the point of the Mississippi thing? That's not even close.
It's to get you all saturated with water before you go over there.
No kidding.
So.
And then we spent some time doing some more train up there. Basically, the way they would run it was that regardless if you know what your mission is on your deployment or not, most of the time the National Guard units didn't. They just kind of got thrown in wherever, and they had to learn on the spot what they were doing. We had the fortunate situation that our commander thought ahead, and he actually reached out and pushed it and figured out exactly what we were doing. So we knew the areas to pay attention to, because during the whole primo train up time frame, they're essentially running through every aspect of basic, doing it all over again to get you fresh on everything.
Yeah.
And then also mixing in the latest updates on different tactics and different techniques that have adapted because of whatever the recent situation has. Mm-hmm. But so we did some of the last minute stuff in Camp Beering in Kuwait. I think we spent, it was probably about 3-4 weeks there, just because our commander pushed that hard that he just got the stuff checked off that we absolutely needed to. and he found out that the trick is that we only needed to have this many people show up, so that's all we're sending. And then we're also going to do this one with only this many people. And so we got so much stuff done in such a shorter time because instead of sending the whole unit and taking the whole day, we're going to knock off like 3 or 4 of these things in one day. Mm-hmm. So that helped shorten our time up. And then we got to our wonderful LSA Anaconda in Balad, Iraq, which is essentially the central logistics hub where everything flies in and then gets trucked out.
Yeah.
And then we were one of, I believe, 4 or 5 different National Guard units from around the country that were attached to the 101st as a convoy escort unit. And so we had up-armored Humvees and ASVs, and we basically would just escort semi-trucks. And some of it would be total civilian trucks and everything that they were getting contracted. And other ones were government contractors like KBR, and they'd have these really badass-looking international, full-size, like U.S.-style sleeper tractor trailers, but they're all armored and they look like straight out of Mad Max.
I want one.
They're that desert tan, and then the grill is black, and then the fuel tanks are black, the exhaust is black, the wheels are black. It's got bulletproof glass. It's got like the mesh cage over the windows. It's got some big brush guard on it. And it's like, that thing's badass.
I'll take 2.
Right?
I don't know what I'm going to use them for, but
yeah, no, just I mean that was something else to see. But I mean, yeah, the civilian ones, those were a trip because we had to go through and we had to essentially our convoy commander had to kind of like sign off on all these trucks that we're escorting. And some of these guys, they run these trucks as hard as they can for as long as they can. And I mean, plywood and 2x4 for seats. They've had their windows knocked out, so they got just cardboard up for windows. They've got plumber's strap holding on to fuel tanks. I mean, it was interesting to see some of the stuff these guys brought.
Yeah, and these are locals then?
Yeah. They're like I think they, what was it, third country nationals, so they were like from one of the surrounding areas. And it would kind of vary, but they were all mostly friendly to the U.S. Like they didn't have any ill will towards us or anything. They weren't trying to pull any weird backdoor type stuff. So,
did they have all the jingly shit on them too?
Some of them, yeah. Some of them had all the fringe and all that shit all over and
jingle trucks.
Yeah. But I mean, we ran at night, so definitely made an interesting work cycle because the rest of the line platoons that were the infantry and the cav guys that all they did were the road missions. Mm-hmm. They pretty much had to sit around and occupy their time during when they're not running, or basically because they're running third shift, and so they had to do rotate through on like guard detail duty and stuff like that. But then for us as mechanics, we got full every day in the shop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're doing 10-hour. I think it started out as 12-hour days, and then it bumped us down to 10 because we finally caught up with getting everything back to standard from the unit before us because they didn't take care of shit, and so we got everything caught up, and then they bumped us down to 10-hour days, and then of course the record guys, it's like, okay, you're going on mission this night, so the day before that you don't come to the shop, you just basically chill and sleep all day, and then you're up all that night, and if it's one where you're there and back, you have that next day off too. So I mean, it was kind of a nice break for us to not be in the shop, because for some of the non-record guys, it got almost to fist fights because they were just around each other for so long, so many days, so many hours a day, and
hot.
Yeah. I mean, there was one point where we had to take something to one of the other yards on the other side of the base, and the way that base is set up is there was Army on one side and then Air Force was on the other, and so this was over on the Air Force side. It was one of the yards, like I want to say it was one of the disposal yards, and they had their little shack with their little overhang and some of them plastic resin chairs sitting out there, and up in the shade underneath that overhang they had a little thermometer, and sucker said 130. And so it's like it's 130 in the shade, and it really doesn't feel like it
Yeah.
because it's so dry.
Yeah.
And that was what they kept telling us, though, is when you stop sweating, you're screwed because you are dehydrated now.
Yeah.
It's that bad. And
Constantly having to watch your piss.
Yep, exactly. And that was one of the tricks they taught us, is that if you have if you're on a base where you can drive, where you're driving around during the day and you want some ice cold water, you take a sock and a bottle of water and you put the bottle in the sock and then you drench that sock in water and hang it from the mirror and go drive around. That it's so hot, so dry, it will evaporate that water out of that sock so fast, it'll actually chill the bottle of water. And it worked. I was like, holy crap, that's cool.
Yeah. Science.
Yeah.
So, lonely old mechanic doing scientific
Yeah.
shit here.
Yep.
So.
For sure.
Yeah, I bet you they didn't teach you that in school.
No. Practical application of thermodynamics like that.
Yeah, I know, right? So, anything crazy happen? There?
I mean, we used to screw with each other a lot. That was our biggest way to break up the monotony, especially being mechanics. Obviously we don't have normal restrooms. We had porta potties everywhere, and you always tried to want to limit your time because not many of them were in the shade.
Even if they were, it doesn't matter. It's still
Right,
130.
right. And so what we'd do is we'd screw with each other. We'd see somebody go in there and we'd jam a screwdriver in a little lock tab so they can't get out. Or we put a big ass, one of them 4-inch wide ratchet straps around one of them and just started collapsing the sides in on a guy. Another one, we grabbed one of them all-terrain forklifts and we grabbed the thing and stuck it like 30 feet in the air and just left them there for like an hour.
That's terrible. Terribly awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you got payback at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it because I had kind of my own little area. Our setup was basically, we had this big concrete pad with a metal awning over the top of it, and then there was like an office trailer set up for our maintenance chief and our mortar sergeant, and then another kind of office trailer where we had all of our manuals and stuff like that, and another office trailer for our admin clerk, where kept track of everything, and then we had like a shop tools area that was in like a wigwam tent, and it had the aluminum Air Force pallets down, and then right next to that was another bay essentially that I claimed right away, and just mainly because of my knowledge of, at the time I was a GM tech, and Humvees are basically just 1-ton GMs. There's they're the same thing at the time. This was before the Duramax was really a mainstream thing. That was still brand new. So 6.5s, that's easy for me. And so they automatically just kind of gave me every Humvee that we had, and I never had to screw with a lot of the other stuff. I had my own little area, my own little setup for doing alignments and all of that. And by the time that we were there, they figured it out, because I started going through and I saw how bad some of these suspensions were on these things, and I was replacing springs and ball joints and idlers and tie rods and everything, and I figured out a way to, because the book way of aligning the Humvees is, a tape measure on the front and back of the tire. Well, okay, that's cool, but how do you know if the thing's dog tracking?
Yeah.
It's 4-wheel independent. Like, it's not like a solid axle truck. And so there was no documented way of doing it that I could find. And so I'm like, well, you got these holes on each control arm for what was it? You got the holes on each control arm for the sway bar, because each control arm, the right rear can be used in the left front. The right front can be used left rear. They're all interchangeable. It's kind of the brilliance of the Humvee design. And I figured out that, okay, if you get a good enough ruler that's got nice precise markings on it, you can actually measure from the hub face to that hole for that sway bar connection. And now you make sure the other side's the same. Now you've got a square on the back end of it. And so now you know that that's square, so now you can set your front. And so I started going through everything and got them all lined up, got everything all good to go. And by the end of it, they figured out that I had saved our unit over 40 grand in tires just because based off the prior unit's usage and how many sets of tires they were going through because they weren't maintaining the shit the right way. And so they ended up awarding me for that one. I got an Army Commendation Medal for that one.
Well, 40 grand then in the military, that's like three sets of tires.
Yeah, I mean it's not anything crazy, but it's, I mean, obviously they got to quantify the number, but
yeah, no.
you know, when I'm seeing stuff that it looks like it's one of them slammed hood cars that, you know, the camber thing going on, and it's like it's not supposed to be that way. I mean, I get it; these things are overloaded, but come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that was also the time when it was still transitioning from the 1114 chassis to the, what was the 1141? Because the 1114 was essentially like the previous generation of Humvee, and they just kept adding more armor to it instead of building it based off of armor specs. And so with the newer ones, it was 1114, and then it was the 1151. That was what it was. The 1151, they had bigger springs in it. They had heavier duty ball joints and tie rods, and so they actually kind of designed it around the fact that they were going to have all this armor on it. You know, I mean, we had at one point when we were fully loaded, we got our hands on a set of electric scales, and these things were tipping out at like 16,000 pounds. And like when you consider the fact that it's still only a 1-ton GM chassis, that's a lot of weight to be slinging around in these things. So it makes a difference when they're set up right.
Yeah. All right, well, let's take a break for a minute, and then we'll get right back.
All right.
All righty. All right, back from break. So, so we are in Iraq, and you have your own space, and you saved the military a bunch of money, and you got an award, and now you're the Superman mechanic.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so where do we go from here? What?
Well, we basically, you know, during our time off when we were done at the shop, and it was kind of neat because we were one of the few units that had an extra vehicle, and it was an old Humvee ambulance that basically it was rattle can spray painted black, and it had the one of the previous units had converted it to a dual exhaust setup, and then it had the Marine Corps exhaust stacks on the side. So it had the dual exhaust stacks on the side, no muffler. So this thing's the hot rod, you know, and so we all had our little dorm rooms essentially. It was our housing where it was like 2-man rooms, and so we all had our roommates and everything. Like they kind of roomed all the mechanics with another mechanic, and then we all lived kind of in the same area of the housing block. And so we would go from the shop, and then we'd go to dinner, and then you can either walk or ride back to the house. And we ended up setting up a satellite internet setup where my roommate was kind of head of this whole thing. He had done this on his previous deployments where he basically bought all the equipment out of his pocket, and then everybody else basically was like paying him for it. And of course, because I roomed with him, I ain't gonna pay for shit. I just have it by default. So, I mean, we had internet. You know, it was at the, like, you couldn't really game with it or anything, but it was enough. You know, you could email, you could, you know, talk to people whenever you wanted to, kind of a thing. So you didn't have to rely on the phone cards as much, and made it a little bit more like home. And then we also, because we had all this network cable running between room to room, we had the ability to do Halo tournaments. So that was a big thing. That was one of our biggest time killers. Was we do just shoot shit and play Halo. And
yeah, because you guys aren't really going out doing much besides just security once in a while.
Yeah. I mean, our unit pretty much had a mission every night. And at the end of the deployment, we ended up having, I want to say it was like 350 missions that we ended up running, and which I think was like 150 more than any other unit of our battalion.
You said this is like 06, 07?
This is, 07.
Okay.
So we were there, I think, August of 07 through beginning of 08. And I know we were done in, I think, April of 08. It was either April or June, one of the two.
So you were there for, this is a pretty long deployment.
The whole thing is about a year, but that year includes your pre-mob and then also your out processing time. So your actual time, at least, and again, at the time for us, it was about 9 months was what we were actually there. So, because then, of course, after you get back, you got to go through all the out processing medical wise. They kind of keep you in a little bit of a holdover just to make sure that you don't have anything, that you didn't come back with anything, that kind of stuff. And then that was it. But yeah, I mean, for us wrecker guys, like I said, we had 6 of us total. We had a couple other guys who already were wrecker certified, so they didn't have to go to the school. But we were the 6 that rotated. Every one of our convoys that went out had a wrecker trailing it. And we rarely ever had to tow anything of our own. The only time that we would is if they got hit or something, basically a wheel got blown off or something like that, or what have you. But most of the time we were there to haul the TCN local trucks that broke down, or we had one that came up on and they got small arms fire, and for whatever reason they were shooting at the trucks, not the military vehicles, which was not very common. But it also was, there was something, I can't remember exactly what happened, but we run only at night, and it was getting to that time in the morning where sun's coming up, and so it started to get light. And of course now the locals, they figure, okay, sun is up, we can go back to moving around like normal. And so they're still seeing a convoy out on the road, they don't know what to do. And that's also when everybody can come out of their hidey holes and not be, as noticed as at nighttime. And so the civilian semis start taking small arms fire, and basically if the guy had like coughed and leaned forward, a round would have went right through his forehead. It was lodged right in the A pillar of the semi. Windshields all shot out, passenger windows all shot out, fuel tanks got holes in it, the right steer tires out, all the right drive tires are out, trailer tires on the right side are out. So it's like, all right, well, guess we're just gonna drag this thing back. We're like 2 miles from home.
What are they typically hauling?
Usually just whatever cargo, foodstuffs. I think they would sometimes do ammo, but it never was like marked as that, obviously. We occasionally would have to do fuel runs where the whole convoy was fuel tankers. But that was a run that the first third to a half of it was really the only iffy point. After that, we were far enough south that it wasn't, usually was pretty calm. There was never really anything going on. But
God, that fuel run would be butt puckering.
Yeah, but it was. I mean, they didn't really have any different lighting on the trailers than anything else did. So, from a outside standpoint, when it's nighttime, you don't know what the trucks are.
So they aren't like the tanker trucks like we have.
They are, but there's no street lights. Like we actually, the military went in and removed all the street lights, all the guardrails, all the curbs, because leading up to that point, the insurgents were actually placing IEDs in curbs and behind guardrails and in the light poles, and they're dumb, but they're not stupid. Like they were figuring out pretty tricky ways of doing stuff. And so,
well, I mean, look at all the stupid people that do geocaching and stuff.
Yep.
I mean, they hide stuff pretty well.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Exactly.
The insurgents are just.
Yeah. And I mean, it was to a point where like starters and alternators were a controlled item because we couldn't just throw them out.
Yeah.
Because they would bust them open, take the windings apart, and use that fine filament copper wire as trigger wire across the road. And we were driving late at night. You ain't gonna see that.
No.
Let alone in daytime, you ain't going to see that. So it's like, they were not dumb. And so I mean, any little weird, feature in the road, any kind of thing like that, yeah, you were always watching for that kind of stuff. Any odd cracks or anything like that, and of course it's a divided highway, but there's no real markings on it. It's just basically two big strips of blacktop or, whatever pavement it might be. And then in the median, there's really no valley to it because there's no road crown, there's no rain. It's just dry, so it's just flat. And a lot of times we would just randomly switch over from northbound to southbound, southbound to northbound, just to mix it up.
Yeah.
Just so it's like it lessens the chance of something that might be planned or planted that we would actually be there for it. So, but yeah, I mean, and then we'd have our sweet teams that we would run into, and we would have to sit there and sit behind them going 15 miles an hour while they're trying to get blown up.
Yeah.
And yeah, those were the guys that were crazy. There was a one of them that we had been there for a while yet, and on base, and they were passing through. And I mean, those guys pretty much lived out of their trucks because they would, they'd move from one base to another in one night, and then they'd move from that one to another one the next night, and they'd just keep doing this big loop, and they might get back to their home base every so often.
Mm-hmm.
But so they'd move through the different bases, and actually was talking to one of them on a shuttle bus on our base that was going from the chow hall back to our housing area, and he was saying that he's got this guy that was with him that has been in country for, I want to say he was saying like a couple of months, and the guy's blowing bubbles. Like he's going nuts already. Like and it, like, you think about it, like, yeah, like some of the equipment you guys are driving, it's kind of scary when you take into consideration that, okay, this thing is a giant four-wheeled vehicle, that it has one seat and a steering wheel. You're sitting on top of the engine and transmission, and it has these arms that fold down and pump radio frequency into the ground to blow stuff up while you're on top of it.
Yeah.
Like, and then another vehicle in your group has this chassis that it's pulling with it that has quick change parts to swap out and keep you going so you can go do it again. Like, yeah, I can see why they might be getting a little goofy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's enough room in that cab for him and his balls, because, wow. But, I mean, yeah, and occasionally we actually had to help them out. We had, they oftentimes, they would try to self-recover, do what they could to just drag whatever it is to the next one and figure it out. But they ended up having where some shrapnel severed the airline, and so they couldn't keep the thing aired up, and they didn't have a way to like conventionally tow it. They had a flat tow. Mm-hmm. And so brakes are locked up on the back end. So we ended up coming along, and I'm like, well, why don't we just reverse tow it, pick up the back end? Mm-hmm. All right, cool. And then they just cruised along with us, and so we got them back, and that was a little interesting because there was something wrong with the steering column. There's no way to lock the wheels. So this thing's behind a wrecker just floating from one side to the other. And I'm trying to go through these checkpoints where we got to, like chicane through these T-walls. And I'm in my mirrors, I'm watching as this thing's swinging over. And I'm like, all right, got to try to time this turn right so it doesn't swing into that wall and it doesn't go in. Okay, cool. And yeah, we got him back home and didn't cause any more damage than what was already done to it. So that was success for us. They really appreciated that one. But yeah, I mean, it all kinds of different cargo that came through there. We pretty much hauled it all. We had one mission, the only time that we didn't run at night, and we ended up having close air cover. We had two Apaches that just flew about 150 feet and just off to our sides and just kind of loitered right above the convoy as we're, going from our base to the destination. And that was pretty cool to see. That was our only convoy that did that, and thankfully I was along for that one. But yeah, otherwise it was just a lot of night driving, and like I said, everything just kind of looks the same. Yeah. The only thing that you see is basically what your lights pick up. I mean, we had tons of lights on all the trucks because of the fact that we're looking, we're constantly not only watching in front of us, the vehicle in front of us in the convoy, but we're looking around just making sure that we're watching for weird shit. We had our regular headlights, and then on the wrecker we had 4 down-facing spotlights, 4 up-facing spotlights, and then 4 rear-facing spotlights, and then 3 side-facing spotlights. And so, I mean, we had pretty much 360 degrees around this thing for like
just
75
light.
feet was daytime. And, I mean, it made it so it's like, okay, you can at least get really good eyes on what you're driving around. But we had a pretty good system set up with our wrecker crews. We did a lot of practice, and we had it to where we were essentially our typical convoy was like 30 semis that we would be escorting.
Yeah.
And we had
that's crazy. That's
we had a scout vehicle that was like usually about a kilometer out in front of the whole convoy, that they were just out there just kind of checking shit out. And then we had lead, and then pace, and then gun truck 1, and we'd have 10 semis, and we'd have gun 2, 10 semis, gun 3, 10 semis, and then we'd have the final gun truck, and then it'd be gun 4, and then wrecker, and then trail. And so we were always at the very tail end, and then we, not only for safety reason, but also because we can best cover the convoy that way. Trail was always, we weren't really worried too much about them having any issues with anything. Like I said, we had pretty solid equipment, so we had it down to less than 7 minutes from the time that we got the call on radio that, hey, this gun truck said there's a truck in their chunk that needs to be hooked up. All right, cool, we're on it. And the convoy would stop. We'd pull out and get around to where it is and hook up and be rolling again in 7 minutes. So
yeah, and this wrecker is like probably one of the big semi wreckers, right?
Kind of. It's actually it's an 8x8 that's built by Oshkosh. So it's got that big kind of wedge nose front.
Okay.
And 48-inch tall tires on it. Big Detroit 2-stroke turbo fed supercharger, 8V92. So they're just scream. I mean, the things are just monsters. And a big 60,000 pound winch on it. All sorts of tools, everything like that.
Yeah.
But it's also, when you compare it to the other trucks that we have, the Humvees and then the ASVs, it's a totally different layout and profile and everything. Like we're sitting in front of the front drive axle, and both front axles, when you turn, steer. And so it's like you almost kind of get this weird swing feeling when you're steering. It's not like driving something normal. I mean, the steering column in these things, you got the wheel right here, but the column goes down, over, down, and backwards to the axle. And it's like, it's a interesting machine to be in. And, the cab is, the thing's 8.5 feet wide basically. And there's only 2 seats in it. And basically because the center console is a tunnel because the radiator's behind the cab. Yeah. And so that's all a big air tunnel to get air to the radiator. And so basically you and your co-driver are sitting on each side of this center console, and that's the only place that you can put the radios. And so we have a radio stack that's this high, so like you can't even really see your co-driver over there. So like you got to rely on them to be watching the passenger side mirror because you can't see it. Yeah. So we had intercoms and stuff like that. We had Bose headsets with the mics that we would wear, and we'd monitor the convoy communications, and then us mechanics figured out how to wire up speakers or wire up headphone cords to the auxiliary inputs on the radios. In the one of the interface boxes had like the old screw type things where you could put like a positive and negative. And we figured out how to do it, that you could plug an iPod in and you could have that going in the background of your headset. And then, of course, the rest of the convoy couldn't hear it. And whenever somebody would come in and be talking, it would cut that. Yeah. So it's like it worked perfect. It's like awesome. But then we ran into the problem because the line Joe has found out that we figured out how to do it, they figured it was something special with our cords. It's like, no, it's how we're hooking them up. So they constantly were stealing our cords out of our trucks. And it got to be kind of a pain in the ass. And at one time they thought it was our headsets, and so our headsets were always going missing. And they gave it all the other gun trucks. They just had the headsets that were in them. And our maintenance chief is like, no, these are yours. They're brand new. Here, take them home with you. Like, I still have mine actually. But it's just because then shit wasn't getting stolen all the time,
Yeah.
But we had 3 wreckers, and one of the previous units had stumbled across the secret that because we had limited tuning availability on these things. Obviously the ECMs are locked, and it's kind of hard to do anything on it without really knowing what you're doing. And they, just like anything with the military, they maxed out at about 60 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we found out that, if you order a new ECM for a tanker version of a Hemet, they do not have a speed limiter on them because they can't, like, it's almost like they tune them different, because the tanker has to haul so much weight consistently that they don't dial the engine back, or I should say the ECM allows it to do its full potential. So we had all of our ECMs and the wreckers were swapped out with tanker ECMs. So they would do over 90, and that's a little interesting.
Yeah, probably a little fast for that.
Yeah. I mean, it handles like a shopping cart, but, whatever. But yeah, I mean, we had, obviously the armored cab, but it was all just add-on armor. It wasn't anything like the newer version now. So, I mean, it had the bulletproof glass, but then like the doors were, half-inch just plate steel,
mm-hmm.
And then they were just hung onto the original hinges, and like it was kind of rudimentary, but again, it's like, it's a different profile, it's a different vehicle. Yeah. It's not something that they're normally targeting. So not the worst thing in the world, but again, because we didn't have any room in the cab, we also didn't have a way to have the IED countermeasures equipment that the other trucks would, which is essentially this box that's about this big that has to be mounted inside the vehicle, and then it's powered, and then there's a big antenna on the outside that it pumps out just a shitload of radio frequencies
mm-hmm.
to essentially block or confuse any kind of receiver that it doesn't know if it's getting the right signal or not.
Yeah, there's been a lot of controversy about those things because they're on all the Humvees and everything.
Yep.
And anybody that was like in the turret of the Humvees and everything are getting like brain cancer.
Yeah.
And all that sort of stuff. And I have a feeling there's a lot of lawsuits coming here pretty quick for that.
And that very well could be. I know. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're still learning a lot about the stuff that we did at the time to get through the mission, but and then it's just like the burn pits thing. Like that's. Yeah. I'm glad they are acknowledging that and at least coming back, because we do have a couple of our guys that have run into some issues where it turns out, that's what it's from.
Yeah, when you're burning fecal matter in tires.
Yep, and refrigerators and anything. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just what they did. And so, it's not that we were doing it because we just figured, screw it. It's like, no, that's how they got rid of their garbage over there. And so we just contracted locals to help the local economy, and unfortunately they just always seem to pick the upside side of the base to do it, or the upwind side of the base to do it.
Yeah.
But so I mean, it'd be interesting to see what comes out of that. But so like I said, we didn't have that in ours, so it didn't seem to really have too much of an issue. But we always had the one gun truck in front and the one in rear, so we theoretically were within that bubble of the overlap. So
yeah, hopefully nothing happens with that. But but definitely the turret operators are getting the bulk of that issue. So unfortunately, but live and learn. Yeah, apparently. So,
for sure.
Especially in wartime, things aren't studied too much.
Yeah.
It's just, hey, what's effective? Let's do it.
Yep, exactly.
So did you get into any firefights or anything like that, or was it pretty nonchalant?
For the most part, I luckily had a fairly uneventful time. I mean, we were running our missions and stuff like that, and getting in a real good rhythm and a good swing of things, and got to be into November, and I want to say it was November 9th, I think. We were running one of those fuel runs, and we were actually on our way back. And, we normally, like I said, we would do the northbound, southbound switchover thing. Well, we came up on a sweep team, and it was in kind of one of them areas where there really is never anything going on. We've never had any encounters there. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, our convoy commander said, screw it, I'm not even asking for permission, and just decided to go around them when he probably should have, because a couple kilometers later, we were doing our just typical northbound, southbound switch, and had a device that went off next to the wrecker. And, they, sweep team probably would have found that. So it was an interesting, I look back and I think that it's more interesting that the actual training just kicked in like it did, because it happened, and of course there's like a base layer of dust on everything in the cab, and all of a sudden the whole cab was like full of dust just because of the shock wave just like kicked everything up. And so this is like as we're crossing the median, it went off, and I basically got onto the radio, and I was like, hey, wrecker, IED, we're still rolling. And then I can hear trail gun truck chimes in, and he's saying, yeah, Roger, our gunner spotted trigger man, and you can hear over the radio the 50s going off. So like he's emptying rounds at something, and it was one of those where, because when we did the lane change thing, we would always turn all of our lights off, and then everything we turned back on once we were over in the other lane, just as kind of a little psych out kind of a thing. And so of course it went off, and I turned all my lights on, and the one on the left side wasn't working. So I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense why the side one ain't working. Had a crack in the bulletproof glass, but thankfully, that as I mentioned before, that different profile of the wrecker, I think, is what made all the difference, because wrecker ended up not having any physical damage other than that cracked ballistic window, and then I think one of the marker lights the lens was cracked off of it or something like that. But
sucker! That's all you got.
Yep. But
cracked window.
My A driver, he got kind of thrown against the side of the cab pretty good, rung his bell a little bit. He was pretty dazed and kind of out of it about after it, but like I said, I just instinctively, I clicked in and I called it in, and I just basically freaking stuck my foot down on the floor and like, all right, let's just fucking keep moving. Yeah. Let's not hang around here. And I'm watching gauges and watching everything like that, and like, okay, temps all look good, everything still looks good, and I radioed ahead like, yeah, let's keep going. I mean, I've not seen any issues so far. So we went to our next like kind of midway point, which was Baghdad International Airport. Was a base that we would travel through, and that was kind of like our break, like our midway break, because the fuel run was a long one. And we stopped there and just kind of did an initial evaluation on me and my A driver. And at the time, of course, like, all right, well, other than elevated heart rate and maybe some new shorts, no like physical injuries or anything like that. But like I said, the A driver, that shook him up pretty good. He was not normally the quiet type, and that was the first time that I ever really didn't hear much out of him for the rest of the night. He was normally a very talkative guy, former SF guy. He served as the political advisor in Panama. I mean, he's a state trooper. Like, the guy's kind of a badass. Like, he's special forces, airborne, air assault, Pathfinder. Like, he's the guy on the poster, Yeah. And but just the funniest guy. Most, like, he'll just sit there and laugh and bullshit with you, and just a great guy, And he's still alive and doing decent. But I mean, yeah, he was really kind of, I guess, surprised by it, because I don't think that was how he anticipated that something would happen.
Yeah.
Let alone being in the record and have it happen.
Well, it's also he's not in control.
Right.
So.
Right. And it's I think it's a different aspect because all of his experience and all of his training has been more of the guerrilla warfare type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And to have it like this, where it's just a suddenly out of nowhere, and you're not even in a combat capacity vehicle because our rifles are behind our seats, pinned against the wall. All we've got that we can really do is we could grab our M9 and shoot out the window.
Yeah.
But that's it. We don't have a turret. We don't have anything.
Yeah.
Like, we're just a support truck. So he was just really, really taken aback by it. Like, he did not know how to feel on it. But
Well, at least there's a 50 right behind you.
yeah, yep. And but he came around and he ended up getting over it. But yeah, it really surprised him. But our convoy commander basically got pulled off the road after that. They put him on extra duty at the chow hall, checking ID cards for the rest of the deployment.
Glorified bouncer.
Yep, and he was not allowed back out. That's really all they could do for him. But I think if our commander had it his way, they probably would have demoted him. But whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that was a dumb move.
yeah. But yeah, after the fact, I ended up getting evaluated and passed the follow-up exam. But they did basically annotate that I had a TBI from the shockwave. And then now I do have some permanent hearing loss in my right ear. Mainly just because with those headsets that we have, this side, the concussion actually pressed it harder, and so it sealed better. And then that caused this side to kind of pull off, and it allowed some of the sound to get in, and so it kind of created the damage that way. But
That makes sense.
yeah, but fortunately, that's all that I ended up getting out of it. So a lot luckier than some of the people out there.
Yeah, no, that's about the best situation or the best that could have come out of that situation.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Oh yeah, no, you're lucky to be here for that. That's just, lucky that you even got hit by it because you had the entire convoy go through.
Right.
And it's like, oh shit, I wonder if they're just sitting there pushing the button.
And that's all I could think of is that we just were just outside of the bubble of the truck in front or behind.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And he basically just kept hitting it, and it didn't go off. And then finally, the device was clear of one, of the two, and was able to go off. But
yeah, and then those are fuel trucks too.
Yeah.
So like you blow up a fuel truck, that's in front of you.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's sketchy. I mean that's pretty eye opening in itself. It's like, okay, well if this is actually better than if one of the other trucks got hit.
Yeah. Yep.
Because then I drive into that.
Yep. Exactly.
So,
and then also I think that like looking back, I don't know that it was a very large device. Just judging by everything, like we had other situations where we were at a stop because a sweep team had found a device and they set it off, and like we could see it from miles away because it was that big of a device. I mean, a lot of the times, the stuff that they were hiding were, 105 howitzer rounds that they would hotwire and hide them or bury them or whatever. So I don't know if this was just like an RPG round or something or whatever, but still enough to do something. So
still big enough to give you a TBI and hearing loss. So.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's just a simple grenade.
Right.
So,
but fortunately, that was all I had. And I mean, we finished up I was back on the rotation within 3 days, so kept going. But we finished out. We had one other guy that something had went off, and he was a turret guy, and he didn't get hit by anything, but he actually he hit the side of his face on one of the turret plates, and so it kind of cut him a little bit and rang his bell a little bit, but that was pretty much the extent of it. All the other, we got hit other times to the extent that like on those big armored security vehicles, the entire wheel was blown off of it.
Yeah.
But like they didn't even know that they had a wheel missing. They just thought that they had a flat tire because it was sitting goofy. And then the truck that, the military vehicle that was behind them was like, I think we just drove past one of your wheels. And so they stopped and they got out there like, oh shit, yeah. Wow. Did not know that. But I mean, those vehicles are designed that way. They're so robust. They ride like a Cadillac. Like they're just such cushy suspension in them and stuff, and not like the Humvees.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's pretty fortunate that you didn't really have a very kinetic deployment for how much they use IED implement and stuff like that.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we finished up, and like I said, a lot of other little incidents here and there, but we ended up coming home with everybody we left with. So
yeah, good. That's very positive thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, we'll take another break here for a minute, and then we'll get into outside of the military life.
All right.
What you're doing today.
Sounds good.
All right. All right. So back from the break. So you're just finishing up your deployment. And I know on the break we had talked a little bit about just you being able to express this situation and being able to talk about it and how much it helps to just speak to that. So, I mean, do you have any advice to anybody that has gone through stuff like that? I mean, your situation, some people might think was kind of minor because of the way you explained it, but the way you explain it is the way you're kind of dealing with it.
Right. And I think that for me personally, the biggest thing that's kind of helped me to get past it and to move on and not get hung up on that is just talking about it, just not being afraid to tell a story, because it's, yeah, it happened, but I mean, personally, I don't want to let that detract me from what I can still do and what I can still achieve. I don't want it to hold me back from anything. So I personally, I think that it's probably one of the best things that that can help is just talk. Just talk about it. Don't hold it in, because then it's just going to sit and eat at you.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of people think or feel ashamed about talking about it because they think it's something so minor. But I mean, almost being blown up is not something that your everyday person would experience. Like, you would have to be in that situation.
Right.
And the fact that you're in that situation, you're transplanted from this very cozy life that we live as a civilian, and you're always on high alert, and something actually explodes around you, just confirms your fears,
right?
More or less. Like, okay, I could have died.
Yep, for sure.
So no matter how minor it is, a lot of people I think they just need to process it, talk about it. Is pretty much what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure.
So no, I mean, I appreciate. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
definitely. I myself and everybody that's listening is going to appreciate it. So, so just like I said, anybody that's afraid to share something, nobody's gonna look down on you for sharing something. So,
nope, not at all.
Yeah, people enjoy hearing what you've done for our freedom. So, no matter how small it is, I mean, even if you cooked all the food for everybody that's overseas, that's still a massive achievement.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Absolutely.
Nothing's minor. So. All right. So you're back in the States now.
Yep.
You didn't deploy after that at all?
No. That was my only one. I did some more extensions with my contract. Ended up getting a job as a full-time federal technician at the Ford maintenance shop in Sussex, which was where my home unit was. And so basically, Monday through Friday, I'm a federal technician, government employee. I work in a shop on wheeled vehicles, generators and stuff. And basically, whatever the unit can't do on their drill weekends, we do all the maintenance and repairs to make up for the difference. And it basically is with all other military as well, other National Guard members, but our rank doesn't really matter. It's basically just your position. And so, like, for instance, the shop supervisor could be an officer, could be a warrant officer, could be an enlisted. The other people out on the floor, I actually had, because eventually I moved from Sussex up to Wapaka, and that was my final armory that I was drilling at. The guy who was lower than me in the shop, he had started there after I did. He was actually my platoon sergeant at the armory in Wapaka. So, as we would say, in uniform on drill weekend, he was my superior. But then at the shop, I was above him. So it was kind of this little different environment. You know, it's the one time where, like, yeah, we all knew each other by first name. Mm-hmm. But then drill weekend, it's all business. You know, it was kind of a neat aspect to it.
It's fun to switch back and forth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then I mean, you've always been a gearhead too. So
Yep.
So this is the point where you're back home. What kind of car are you working on at this point?
I mean, the coolest thing is that having done the deployment, and it got me that record experience. Mm-hmm. I actually had a chunk of time where, when I got back, the first job that I ended up getting was at a independent shop that also did towing. And so I was like, cool, because now I can do this towing stuff. And occasionally we'd have these, ones that are on the side of the freeway where, hey, cool, there's your adrenaline rush. You can get to tow a car that's on the side of a 41 while there's cars and trucks going past you at 70 miles an hour,
Yeah, dude, it's so weird, like, because, I mean, I drive in Illinois all the time, and so you got these wreckers on the side of the road that are picking up vehicles. You're making eye contact with somebody on the side of the road when I'm going 90.
Yeah.
like I'm a few lanes over, but still, It's like, I can see you.
Yep, exactly.
So, yeah,
but,
that's...
Yeah, I mean, and so I did that, and then I started driving truck, and I drove truck over the road for a company out of Hartford for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And then eventually went from there, and that was when I became the full-time federal technician. It was something that I was trying to get into, and I finally got into because somebody left. It's one of those that there's very few openings that pop up, but I mean, and as far as, I mean, I haven't really had any big projects that I've ever worked on, but it's always been either working on my own stuff just for maintenance or upgrades, or something with the bike, that just swapping stuff out here or there. My dad's always had projects, and I've always helped him out with that stuff.
I still remember when you were trying to put body mounts in your Jimmy.
Yeah.
When I was trying to sleep upstairs in the shitty ass garage.
Yeah. That was because when I was at basic, I gave Zach the Jimmy, and I basically let him go to town, and he was going to lift it, and he was going to turbo it, and all this stuff. And I come back, and body bolts are all out of it, half the front clips off of it. I'm like, Zach, this is my daily. I kind of need this back, dude. You've had this thing for how long now? So yeah, that was a little bit of an interesting chunk of time there.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a beautiful time there. So you get this federal position. What year are we in now?
Let's see, that would be there from, I think I was there for 7 years. So, I mean, that's That's got to be about 10 years ago now. Is when I started there because I was there for 7. So probably about 2015.
So this is after Reliable?
Yeah. This is after Reliable. Yeah, I did Reliable for, I'm going to say 5 years. And then I did the trucking thing for like 3 years. And then had a short stint where I was a store manager at O'Reilly. And then parted ways with that. And that's actually when I went to the federal technician program. And did that up until 2021. And that was when I left the National Guard. Did 16 years, and basically I was done with it. Yeah. No real reason to stick around. The amount that I would get for retirement would have been like $400 a month. Yeah. And the amount that I get for disability is way more than that. So it's like I'm not even going to worry about it. So then I ended up finding a pretty similar gig at the place that I'm at now at Visu Sewer in Pewaukee, and we got a fleet of over 500 pieces of equipment, and we're the main shop, and I mean they're located all over the country. So
yeah, I know, because we've been talking back and forth recently about diesel engines and stuff like that, and this Bobcat I've been working on.
Yep.
All that other crap. So yeah, I mean, I dabble in stuff a little bit, but not as much as you do. I try to avoid the engine repairs and stuff. I like to just make things faster. So.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you're still into that because now you're in racing and stuff, right?
Yep, that's correct. I got a taste of it back in high school. My dad wanted me to at least do it once because he had done it a bunch of times, and his dad had done it, and his buddies had done it, and my mom had done it, and basically they ran what's called the good old boys class at Crandon, up in northern Wisconsin, and it's the big one was always the brush run, and it used to be called the Brush Run 101, and it was before it's the closed track that it is now. It was 4 laps around this 25 and 1/4 mile course that went from where the track is now out in the potato fields, out through the woods, through the swamp, through downtown Crandon, back onto this track area. And you did that 4 times, and if you finished, you got your entry fee back. Yeah. Because a lot of people didn't finish. And it was essentially the Northwoods Baja. I mean, it took a lot to finish that thing. And
what's cost the entry?
I mean,
like nowadays.
Now, for a weekend, it is about $300.
Oh, that's not bad.
So it's not terrible. I mean, and we've got 7 weekends each year. But
and then how many vehicles usually entered?
In our class, we typically have 19 to 20 cars on the track at a time.
That's pretty profitable for the people running it, at least.
Yeah,
then.
But I mean, there's payouts to certain number of places depending on how many cars are, how many vehicles are in the race. Mm-hmm. Some of the upper classes, they're a little bit lower numbers just because it's the pro classes. But the good old boys was actually an entry level class where it was basically like a demo derby. Like you got a car, you put a cage in it, and you race it. Yeah. And now you're going around a track that has jumps and it's dirt, and it's like you can't touch anything. You can't touch suspension. You can't modify anything. But there's ways around that because we had an '87 Thunderbird, and they had a V8 option. Yeah. So we took a 302 out of a Mustang and stuffed that in there, and then we put F-150 springs in the front of it so that it would sit back at normal height. Yeah. And then we, because you're allowed to put skid plates on them, so we jacked the front end up off the ground so that the sway bar would go to its full extent, then welded the skid plate on so that when it set back down, the sway bar ran into the skid plate and basically like stopped the suspension from compressing anymore. Yeah. So we had our little tricks and ways around, and welded up the rear end and fully built the transmission and stuff like that. But
still, I mean, you're off-road course in a Thunderbird.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And it's a unibody car, so it can only handle so much, and then it's going to start to turn into a banana. Yeah. And which it did.
Bananas are fun to watch
race. Right. And so I mean, it's not a very long lifespan for a good old boy's car.
Yeah.
So I had kind of from then and there, I was like, watching all these other classes out there and seeing all the different things, because at that time there was good old boys all the way up to, and there was like probably a dozen or so different classes, and ranging from that class all the way up to the Pro 4s, which are 900 horsepower four-wheel drive trucks. And I mean, these things are going around sideways, and they're kicking the ass end out before they're even into the turn.
Yeah.
And they're just sitting there on the red line all the way. From when the races start, I don't think these things ever drop below $7,000. I mean, it's nuts. But there's also all the classes in between, and I was like,
those are methanol then, right?
No, they all still have to be regular pump gas. We're not even allowed to run E85.
Oh, really?
We cannot have any ethanol in our fuel.
Yeah.
And that's just a series rule. So they want us to all be using good old fashioned race fuel.
That's pretty cool.
So, and we have to run DOT tires, so they can't be one-off race compound. They got to be something that any average consumer can go out and buy and put on their vehicle and drive on a highway with. So it definitely, but then it also makes sure that you don't have somebody who's got stupid amount of money just in their tires. We are allowed to cut them and groove them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that also helps a lot. But I basically said, all right, so in the middle of the pack of all these different classes, we've got buggies. And there's 3 different classes of them. The one is light buggy, which basically you have to, it's a purpose-built tube chassis, cage platform, but you still have to use all bone stock Volkswagen parts. Drum brakes. You can't run rev limiters. All stock internals. So you're still working with a limited, very limited platform. Then the next class up is single buggy, and that's what I end up getting into, and I race. And now we can run hub conversions where we're running. I've got Willwood 4-piston calipers, front and rear. We've got a lot different options. I've got quadruple bypass shocks. We can set our ride heights. We can all that kind of stuff. We can play with some more stuff. We're still limited to what you'd be able to put on a Volkswagen, but the aftermarket is now open to us. Yeah. So we've got rev limiters. We can sit there and just let that thing bounce, and we don't need shift lights anymore. And, we've got some guys who they do not ever lift. They just, their right foot is down, and they'll still clutch as they shift and everything, but they just let it ping off the ref limiter while they're shifting. And same thing when they're in the air.
That's probably my style.
The front runners do it, but we had this last year one actually, he kind of ran into some mechanical issues, but I mean, it's again like that, a lot more sustainable class, and also a lot more affordable to run the class. Yeah. So,
but if breaking as many parts.
Right, yeah. I mean, we did have one component that broke last year, but it's in the with the chassis that I have, it is a high stress point. Yeah. So it is an area that we got to constantly be looking at and checking and watching for any kind of cracking that's going on. So
it's still impressive. You only break one part.
Yeah. Yep.
In a season.
Yep. And that was actually after a full season before that. So
yeah,
it's held up very well. I'm very, very impressed with this car. So
I mean, that's an affordable car sport.
Yeah.
That's amazing, because I know a bunch of guys that do like circle track and sprint and stuff like that, and they're breaking stuff every single night. Yep. Like major stuff, especially running methanol and stuff. Yep. You're just destroying internals.
Yep. And it's like my car, I run 114 octane in leaded fuel. Yeah. So but that's also because we're running high compression engines. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's the trade-off, but it all works, and it seems to be holding together really well. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like a freaking blast.
It is definitely a fun time.
Yeah. So where are all the tracks you go to then?
Our closest one is Lena, Wisconsin, and then we'll end up being there 2 weekends. And then we do a weekend at Antigo, Wisconsin. We do 2 weekends in Crandon. We do 1 weekend in Bark River, Michigan, and then we do a weekend way up in Elk River, Minnesota.
Okay.
That's our long haul. It's about 5.5 hours each way.
Yeah. Yeah. Is the track worth it though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is that ERX is probably my favorite track next to Crandon.
No, that's good.
Just because the soil like the soil makeup, the elevation changes in the track, the features, it was a blast. Unfortunately last season we weren't able to get up there because our tow vehicle was having transmission issues. But the first year I was up there, that was an awesome track.
Yeah. And then what? I mean, are you running different tire compounds and stuff for every track you go to?
No. Actually, we have one set of tires, and because we have to run DOT, we do have minimum inflation rules, so we can't air way down.
Mm-hmm.
But winter tires are basically what we use because now it's a soft compound that we can cut and groove to be a tread pattern that's almost like a mud tire, but it's a nice soft grippy tire. And so obviously our rear ones are cut for traction, and then our front, they look like tractor tires. Just big wide gouges cut out of it, so it's just like lines, so they just can bite and steer that much better.
Yeah, and then so are your rear engine rear wheel drive?
Yep, okay. Correct.
Yeah.
And that's a standard Volkswagen 4-speed. So it's still a 3-pedal car.
God, it sounds like you're driving fucking go-karts in the dirt.
Yeah. I mean, it's a trip. You know, I mean, when you have to get in by flipping open the roof and taking the steering wheel off and then sitting down in there and putting the wheel on. Yeah. And then you got to pull the hatch shut.
It's like you're driving a spaceship.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that sounds so. Like you run Nokian tires, or whose tires you run?
I've got. I don't have any kind of official support or sponsor for tires, but the ones that I've got on there are Coopers, and I like them. I mean, they seem to be doing really well. I did get a tire groover just because there's a little bit of tweak that I want to make in the pattern that was in it compared to what the guy that I bought the car from had. But I mean, it like the way the car is set up. I mean, we've got a couple of pretty good race shots where we're going around a corner and front inside wheels up off the ground. So
yeah. So how are you doing? Like, how competitive are you?
I mean, we're usually mid pack. The last 2 seasons we've been middle of the pack out of the 20 cars. This, like I said, this last year with having a component that broke, we were out for 2 rounds, so we were a little further back. I think we were like 15th in points. But the first year, we were, I think, 12th or 13th in points out of 22. So, I mean, we had a very solid first year. Yeah. We had a couple of 10th place finishes. So, starting where we were, never doing it really before to that level, and to the point where we were already starting to touch on that top 10. Yeah. Like, that was definitely an awesome experience. And now we've made a lot of friends with other drivers and stuff like that. It's a very competitive class, but it's also a very friendly class. Mm-hmm. We had one time where we were having some spark plug issues, and basically during practice I had to pull off. Like, I got 1 lap in and just pulled off, and instantly all the other drivers had noticed. Yeah. And so got back to the pit. I'm looking through and trying to go through stuff, and all of a sudden, out of the woodwork, they just start coming up, and they're like, "Hey, what do you need? What do you need?" Like, anything that I might have needed, they were willing to offer to get me through the weekend. That's awesome. So that I could still get out there and compete. So it's a very supportive group that's in our class. Yeah,
I think the majority of racing is pretty supportive because they want people to race against.
Right.
It ain't fun if you're racing yourself.
Right. Well, and it's also it's building that favor tree. It's because that if you had something happen, that you would want the same kind of support. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But what So what are your plans this year? How do you think you're going to do?
I mean, we're going into it with a different kind of setup going into the start of the season. The promoters of the series, the Champ Off Road Series, they are introducing a new round down in Wheatland, Missouri, and they obviously understand that not all the sportsman level classes are going to be able to go to Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of having a not part of Champ Series, but still a points race in Lena, and there just won't be any pro drivers racing. And then anybody who does want to go and make the trip to Missouri can. But then in order to even that out for points over the whole year, everybody drops their lowest scoring weekend.
Okay.
So it balances it out. Like, okay, you may have, done all of them. You may have went to Missouri and did both Lena races, but you're still going to drop one.
Yeah.
So it levels it out. So, I mean, I think that, we'll have to see what drivers come back this year. I know there's been some shifting in the off season. We've had a couple that have kind of shut down their own programs to focus more on their kids. We've had some drivers that they're just kind of getting to that age where they're just done.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see who comes back and who's still in the ring this year. But this Lena run, I'm interested to see how that pans out, because I know that there's probably going to be a good chunk of our field that is going to be down in Missouri, that of the top contenders for points are probably going to run down there.
Are you going to go down?
No, that's just a little too far for us.
Long ass drive.
Yeah, I've got limited amount of vacation, so but I'm hoping that maybe we have a little bit of a smaller field going into that first round. And I mean, Lena's a great track. It's a fun track. It's a tight, technical, short track. So it's not really one where we ever build that big of a gap in the field. Everybody's always kind of close to each other. Compared to like Bark River or Crandon, where there's so much real estate there that these guys who are fast, they start making distance.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see, like I said, with depending who all shows up, how that round's going to go, because I think that some of us are going to possibly see some placement that we may not have seen yet. So.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun year then.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, what do you see in your future from now? Where do you think you're going to go?
As far as like with the racing, we're going into our third year. I'd love to start cracking into that top 10 a little bit more and try to make that kind of a regular thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I'm ever going to make anything crazy, like a dedicate everything and anything kind of thing. But I mean, I also don't want to rule it out.
Yeah.
If I get an opportunity to do something, at a higher level or something, cool. But I mean, I'm not out to make anything huge out of it. It's just kind of a side thing for me, and it's just something I've always wanted to do. So do it for a while and see what happens.
Yeah. Besides racing, do you see anything else in your future that you're trying to aim for?
Right now, everything's going pretty solid. The place that I'm working at has, we're making big moves, big changes. Just basically made some partnership deals that we're looking to expand in a massive way. Just got remarried last year in September. So, new house, remarried, relatively new job, got the racing started. Like everything's finally kind of starting to fall into place. So
that's good.
I'm happy to see everything going the way it is, and I'm excited to see where everything goes.
No, that's awesome. That's all that we can hope for.
Yeah.
So, and then especially you and others going off to war and coming home and things getting ironed out and life being good and things coming together.
For sure.
That's always good to hear.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think we'll leave it at that. Maybe further on in your racing career, I can have a famous racer on here.
Yeah.
and we'll have you back on or something like that.
All right.
Go from there.
Sounds good.
All right. I appreciate you coming on. It was a great conversation, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Use every night coming through televisions. It's a revolution. I would rather die by electrocution than let them silence us or let them lie to us for one more day. This is retribution. Let them hate if they want to hate. Trust them, I say what I want to say. I ain't gonna fake it or run away. Face it, I'm unafraid. Take it on the chin like a man with his judgment day. We're the underdogs, we're the challengers on our worst behavior. We're the renegades, we're the vagabonds, we're our generation. We're the counterculture, we're the underground, don't know what to tell you. Label us as your enemy, but we're the rebellion.